Today is May 25th, 2025, and welcome to the 439th episode of the So Video Games podcast. Here on the show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I'm the one-man host of the show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores from 0 to 10, while also offering full accessibility information on every review that we publish. Hello! How's it going? Hope you're all having a good afternoon, or a morning, or an evening, or a twilight, or whatever it is time of the day you're listening. Glad you're here. Thanks for being with me, and thank you for joining me. All right, I guess going to kick things off with housekeeping, where I talk about tidbits, news items, industry happenings, basically anything randomly game adjacent that has caught my eye in the last 7 days. And I've got a pretty fair amount to talk about this week. Let's see what we got on the agenda here. First up, Helldivers 2 specifically. I've played it a bunch, but kind of fell off recently. And in the last episode, if you caught that, when Carlos Rodella was back on, he said that he was pretty sure that the game would be going to Earth. Up until this point, we have been fighting bugs and robots and weird bio creatures on other planets, but they were doing a big push to bring the conflict to Earth and to get new players back into the fold and excited about the game again. They did this in the original Helldivers before, and it was kind of cool. So I was kind of curious as to see how this was going to play out this time, I guess. And they did. Carlos was correct. He called it, and I think like the day after we wrapped the podcast, they announced a trailer that said, hey, the fight for democracy is coming back to Earth, and everybody got to get back in the game and save Earth from the aliens, and let's go do democracy and stuff, and cool. So, like I said, I haven't been playing for a while, just for various reasons. I mean, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you probably are familiar with the saga of Helldivers 1 being one of my favorite games of all time, and then Helldivers 2 launching really weird, ups and downs, cool idea, but then just lots of bugs and problems and balance issues and all sorts of just difficulties. It seems like the developers have had a struggle trying to get like their head in the game on this one. It seems like they weren't exactly sure of what to do with it. And so there's been a lot of hot and cold periods. So I kind of fell off. I got tired of the grind, and I didn't feel like enough new content was being added to the game. You know, we'd get like guns or something, but they were kind of identical to the other guns. It's very rare we get something that feels genuinely new in this game. I feel like the developers are scared of breaking the balance, and so they're playing it very cautious, and we don't get a lot of new stuff that's exciting. A lot of samey missions, and I just was like done. But I was willing to give it a shot. Go back to Earth and see what the haps was. And I got to say, it was really, really boring and disappointing. Boring and disappointing to the point that I actually deleted Helldivers 2 after I got done playing the Earth missions, because I'm like, you know what? I don't need to have this on my hard drive right now. Maybe I'll come back to it. But it was just terrible. The missions were basically going to a random city that could have easily been any one of the other maps that were already in the game. There was nothing really like special about it. It was just a bunch of buildings and kind of an urban environment. We've had that already. And when you got there, a bunch of the Illuminate faction, which are kind of like the bio zombie / squid guys or whatever, they're just there, and you're just like shooting them. A bunch of ships show up, and you're shooting those guys. I mean, the action there was really nothing different than what we did in any of the other levels and missions beforehand, and it was just really long and repetitive, and I don't really like the Illuminates very much anyway, and it just felt like more of the same. Just there wasn't really anything new or fresh about it. It was just the concept of we are now on Earth. I mean, so what? Like, if you didn't tell me that, there's no way I would have known. It would have been basically indistinguishable from a bunch of other missions we already had beforehand. So I think the Helldivers team is really struggling to move the game forward in appreciable ways. I think that's a problem that a lot of developers of ongoing like live service games have to face. And sometimes you have a good way through and sometimes you don't. And I think that right now, I think they're in a fallow period where they're kind of, I don't know. I think they need a infusion of fresh blood or inspiration, or maybe just don't be afraid to break the game a little bit and don't be so worried about the challenge all the time. Like, maybe bring some fun back into it. So anyway, the Earth thing was like a complete nothing burger. It was really boring, and I bounced, and I even deleted the game. So not like I'll never play it again. Maybe I'll come back to it at some point if they really do something fresh and original. But for now, I think I've played all the Helldivers 2 that I want to play, and I'm going to move on to other things. All right, so there's that. Other housekeeping news, Antstream Arcade, which is a company which I have not really played a lot of if I remember correctly, they put out a bunch of retro stuff. I think they even have some kind of like a small, I don't know, like a framework where you can access lots of different games within their larger framework. I'm not super familiar with them, but I have heard the game several times. I guess because I'm not much of a retro player, I don't really pay much attention to it. But they just had an announcement saying that they are collaborating with Xbox to launch a new service called Retro Classics. It is a collection of over 50 games, which is right now, literally this moment, available for Game Pass members. This is stuff like Pitfall, Kaboom, Commando, Mech Warrior 2, which is a weird one because it's like you had like some Atari level games and then all of a sudden Mech Warrior 2. There's like at least 50 like old school or mostly old school, but then a good mix of other stuff. You can check it out. And if you've got Xbox Game Pass, nothing to lose, but it's there now and you can see what they've got to offer. This stuff is also supported, according to the press release here, on LG and Samsung smart TVs, Amazon Fire TV devices, and Meta Quest headsets if you play games on any of those things. Next up in housekeeping, there has been a crazy amount of Warhammer 40k stuff announced. There was the Warhammer Skulls event, which is, I guess, now an annual thing where Games Workshop and all the developers that work with them kind of like save up all their juice and make like a million announcements at the same time. There's way too many announcements to get into, but there's like a lot of really, really cool stuff announced. To give you just a taste here, Rogue Trader, which I think for me is one of the best PC-style RPGs I've played in quite some time. Played it on PS5. Did not finish it because it's a massive game. I will come back to it. There's also a DLC that's out for it that I haven't even touched yet. And they also just announced a brand new DLC. It's called Lex Imperialis, which I'm very excited about. Because that game is just, it's so fucking awesome. I really love Rogue Trader. I will never stop singing its praises. So that's amazing. And there's also a new sequel coming. So not only did they drop a new DLC for the original Rogue Trader, there is a sequel called Dark Heresy coming. And if it's as good as the first one, it's going to be a real fucking banger. So very excited for that. And you don't even have to be a 40k fan to really get into Rogue Trader. I think it's just a really, really well done PC style RPG. You build your party, you can swap characters out, lots of different places to go, tons of subsystems. You're colonizing planets, you're fighting spaceships in space. You're doing like little battles, like turn-based battles. There's all sorts of stuff. There's like story. It's funny. It's exciting. It's gross. Like there's all sorts of stuff going on. Rogue Trader is just the shit. It really, really is. So looking forward to seeing what Owlcat will do next. Beyond that, 40k fans have a brand new narrative DLC available as of yesterday for Warhammer 40k Battle Sector, which if you don't know anything about 40k, Battle Sector is probably the most like basic Warhammer content there is. Like if you're not familiar with what the core identity of Warhammer is, that's a pretty good place to start. It's really strongly turn-based tactics with like small army building and individual units, but there's also like a narrative. And if you get done with the narrative, you can go to like just like a mode where you can like put armies together and just play the game itself. Battle Sector is pretty dope. I think it's really, really good. I like it a lot. And I am very excited to get narrative DLC because I played through all the narrative stuff before and I just didn't want to play just the random army battler, which I mean is cool, just not for me. So they just dropped a new DLC called Deeds of the Fallen, and it focuses on the sisters, the sororitas units, where they're all female, various types of female soldier. There's like, you know, gun wielding, sword wielding. There's some that have angel wings and jetpacks. All sorts of stuff like that. So there's a 12 mission story campaign. I played through, I think, the first 2 missions so far, and it's pretty challenging. And I think the missions are pretty long. So you definitely get something to sink your teeth into if you want like a good like tactics experience with a little bit of narrative thrown into it. So I think that's great. Very excited. So Battle Sector finally gets some new narrative DLC. And honestly, folks, if they would release like a narrative DLC for Battle Sector like once every 6 months or something, I would buy it literally every single time. I could just play this game forever as long as they kept introducing new campaigns. So that's great stuff. Also, Warhammer 40,000 Gladius just gets a new expansion pack. It's called Onslaught. But the real news here is that if you've never played Gladius, and I'm pretty sure I've played this one and I think I liked it, but I believe it's PC only if memory serves. I could be wrong. But regardless, you can pick up Gladius and play it on Steam from May 22nd to May 29th. So by the time you hear this podcast, you've still got several days. If you go ahead and play that game, you can keep the entire game for free. So they're giving that away if you play it before May 29th. And I believe you will also get the DLC as well. Also, there is a brand new version of Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine. Not number 2, the one that just came out. This is the original Space Marine that came out several years ago, which is funny because as I played Space Marine 2, which ended up being fantastic, I was like, I should go back and replay Space Marine, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I was like, what the hell? I looked around, and I'm not sure what happened to it. Maybe they delisted it, or maybe just was taken off the market for a while. But, clearly they had this one in the wings, and they wanted people to play the brand new one, which is a smart move. So the Space Marine Mastercrafted Edition is coming out. That's the first adventure of Captain Titus and the Ultramarines. And in that game, they fight against the Orcs. It's not exactly the same thing as Space Marine 2, because Space Marine 2 is like kind of a departure, an expansion and a deepening of the mechanics we first saw in Space Marine, but still an exciting thing. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the new graphics and the new reworked gameplay elements and so forth and so on. There's a million other announcements. There was like a typing game that came out, a Warhammer typing game where you shoot people by typing words. That looked really fun. And there's a million other announcements as well. So check out Warhammer 40k Skulls, the Skulls event. There's like PR all over the place. There's a giant Warhammer 40k sale going on Steam right now, so you can pick up a bunch of stuff for cheap. Check it out, and if you don't know why I like 40k so much, look into it yourself, and there's a pretty good chance you might like it too. Last bit of housekeeping here. A game that came out a while ago, Lost in Random, which was not the biggest hit, but I think a lot of people really liked it. It became kind of a cult favorite among certain circles, and my wife really liked it a lot. It's kind of why my eye caught on this one. Lost in Random has a brand new demo available on PS5 for the sequel. It's called Lost in Random: The Eternal Die. So just a quick heads up, I have not played the demo myself, but the demo is there on PS5, active right now, so if you want to check that out, if you're a fan of the original Lost in Random, you can see what the sequel is got cooking there. So, all right, folks, before we get to the main part of the show, just a quick heads up that there is a Patreon supporting the show. All the costs of So Videogames and some of the costs of running Game Critics are paid out of my own personal pocket. And if you love the show, or if you like the website, I would invite you to chip in and help me keep it all running. If everybody listening or reading would chip in just $1 a month, just one, all my expenses would be covered, and that would be greatly appreciated. If you can afford it, I would absolutely appreciate it. All right, folks, let's see what else we got here. I usually start off with circle backs, where I come back to games that I have talked about earlier and I have further thoughts on them. But, gosh darn it, I don't think I'm really playing anything now that I was playing before. I think I kind of just finished everything that I was playing and kind of just put a pause on it all and kind of started fresh this week, which is nice in some ways because I feel like I just have this clean break and I can do whatever I want. But also, I guess I don't have anything for the segment, so I guess we're going to be moving on. Let's jump right into new games this week. First up is Power Sync. Playing this on the Switch, comes to us from Winterwire Games. That's a pretty cool name for a studio. I dig that. Winterwire. Kind of cool to say. I believe they are in Australia. Small team who is releasing this puzzle game. Aesthetically, it looks like... I don't know, BioShock, I guess, is probably the easiest corollary, but not really BioShock because your main character has like that diving suit on where they've got like the big helmet with the little grill and the light on and the helmet. And that, makes everybody think of the big daddies from BioShock. And to be fair, every character in this game has a variation of that suit. So they have like different types of helmets and different suits, but they're all kind of like vaguely old school underwater sea diver-ish kind of outfit. But that's really not really the focus. Really the focus is puzzling. In this game, you play a sea diver guy who is living in this underwater kind of area. Remains to be seen whether it's like a nefarious lab filled with mutants or whatever. At the beginning of the opening levels, you're on the outskirts. And so something happens, the power goes out in this underwater area or this underwater city, and you have to go and fix it. So this manifests by you going to a level, and the levels are fairly abstract, I guess. It's not like you're on top of a big like structure that makes sense or anything. These are kind of abstract puzzle levels, which is totally fine. It's not a criticism, just an observation. And so you get out and you interact with all sorts of different puzzle elements. The goal in each area so far is you arrive on a tram, a little underwater sub. You get out in this level and you cannot leave the level until you reactivate the power for the tram again to go to the next level. So you get out, the sub shuts down, you've got to go in the levels and find out how to turn the power back on and then come back. And it's kind of cool because there's power lines that go from the sub to wherever the power switch is. So that's a little bit of a hint for you to like where you're ultimately going to try to get to. But the levels so far have been fairly, I don't want to say linear, but I think like sequential in that you can't do this other thing until you do this first thing first, which I guess is also kind of linear, but it doesn't feel linear in the traditional sense of I am going in a straight line or there's only one way to go. I mean, it does feel like sometimes there's multiple ways to go, but you can't really progress until you figure out what steps to do in which order, which is fine. Total puzzle design makes sense. You don't have any weapons. You just can jump a little bit. But other than that, you can pick up items. Sometimes you find these little orbs that you pick up and you drop them off in a power receptacle to like power up a device. There are walkways which are intangible until you power them up and then they become tangible. There are little vents where you can just step on them and they shoot, I don't know, hot water and they blow you across the level. Like they give you those giant jumping boosts across the level. There's all sorts of stuff like that. Verticality to it. There's upper levels, there's lower levels. When you get to the top of the level, you can look all the way down and see where things are. There's platforms that go back and forth and elevators and stuff. So all your traditional puzzle elements are here. And I think it's a pretty cute little package. I've been going through a couple levels a day, and I think it's just really fun to do one or two. They have not been extremely difficult so far, but there have been a few where I'm like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on? I think the biggest thing is that sometimes I get a little bit turned around in these levels sometimes, and so I'm kind of thinking, wait, do I need to go back or not? And sometimes it's kind of a weird thing that may not be exactly clear as I'm explaining it, but there's lots of save points throughout the level. And so sometimes when you cross them, it's possible to sometimes like save in a way that kind of messes you up a little bit. Like, for example, I had a power core that I needed to bring to a power receptacle and I forget what happened to it, but I dropped it or something. And then I saved and it saved me not having it. So then when I died and had to come back, I fell off the level. You can fall in this game because you're in the ocean. If you fall off the platforms, you'll just fall infinitely down to the bottom. You got to restart. So I fell after saving myself, not having the orb, and I had to go back and get it, which was, I mean, honestly, not a big deal. These levels are not huge. And even if you had to start from scratch, not a big deal. But sometimes you can just get yourself a little bit confused. Like, wait, didn't I have an orb? Wait, did I already have it? Did I not have it? What was going on? And so every once in a while, I'll get myself kind of turned around like that, but not a big deal. At the very worst, all you got to do is just restart the level and come back to it and then just go through again. And again, it's not a huge deal either way. So far, I think it's really cute and fun. I'm curious to see if the story is going to develop at all or if there's going to be any like heavier narrative. I mean, it's fine if it didn't, but it would be cool if that did play more of a factor as you got deeper into the depths and discovered more of, you know, what was going on here. But if it ends up being just a straightforward puzzle game, that's fine too. I think it's cute, and I think these levels are bite-sized, and it's fun to play for 1 or 2 levels a night. So far, I think it's neat. I also like how when you're underwater, little fish are kind of swim around. There's bubbles and stuff, and so they kind of lean into the aesthetics of it. And being a little, you know, diver guy with the cool Big Daddy helmet is pretty neat. So yeah, I like it. It's pretty fun, pretty cool aesthetics, and you know, every once in a while I can go for a good puzzler, and this one is kind of checking that box for me. So yeah, thumbs up so far. It's pretty cool. Power Sync, playing it on the Switch, coming from Winterwire Games. All right, next up is Into the Restless Ruins, developed by Ant Workshop, coming to us from Wales Interactive as the publisher. This is a pretty interesting one. It's a mix of like a lot of different elements, and it's kind of hard to categorize. Essentially, you are, well, I'm not going to worry about the story. There's a story, but, you know, it's just kind of a framework to get things kicked off. Basically, you play a character who is in a underground ruin. This is 2D, top-down, pixel-based. But you have cards, and cards are the rooms that you are going to be going into. So, okay, I don't even know where to start with this, but like basically you start a level and you see the entire level and there are foggy areas which are covered up. And so you need to get to those foggy areas because they have these little, checkpoints you need to get to in order to progress. But you're not sure which places are which because they're all fogged over. So all you really know is that you need to build a path from where you start at the level to hit those foggy areas one after another so that you can find the checkpoints and move on. How you do this is you have a deck of cards, and each card has a room or a hallway on it. And so you choose a card and then you place the door of the room that you have on your card to where you at. So you have a way to get into it. And then that room will like go down on the map and it'll have a couple more doors attached to it. So then you have to build a series of rooms and or hallways to reach the place where you need to go. But it's not just like a series of like straight lines. Sometimes it's a circular room, sometimes it's an oblong, sometimes it's got a weird shape, sometimes it's diagonal or whatever. And so you've got to like mix and match your cards so that you can fit them together puzzle-like to hit these foggy areas and then keep going. But it's not as simple as that, because also each room, well, not each room, but many rooms have a thing that happens in them. So for example, one room might be a blacksmith room where you go inside and you can level up your character. One room might be a health up room. One room might be a bonfire room, and so forth and so on. So it's kind of a mix between making sure you get where you need to go, but then also like strategically placing these rooms in such a way so that it helps your run through each level. And that's important. Why? Because I'm about to tell you. So combat in this game is like Vampire Survivors, where you are running around this field and you will auto attack. And then when enemies get close to you, just kind of take a swipe at them. So in addition to that, there's also a light mechanic where each run begins with you holding a torch, and there's a giant, like basically the whole screen is lit up. And the longer you spend in a level, the smaller and smaller and smaller that circle of light gets. So I know this is like a lot of weird things to talk about at once, but try to keep this all in your head at the same time. So like you're in a level, you see a blank map, you're trying to connect the dots on the map by laying down cards. Each card represents a room that you place on the map and connect them up in whichever way you wish. And then once you put these cards down, you got to go inside the level to go check out the rooms yourself, like you're playing it in real time. You're going into the level you just created. Vampire Survivor style combat, where it just auto attacks everything that comes next to you. And then you are on a time limit because the torchlight that you have is slowly getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And if you get stuck in a level, did not make it back to your starting point before the whole level goes dark, then each second you spend in the dark hurts you. And it also becomes more difficult to see. And so it kind of becomes this back and forth between explore the level, check out the rooms. Did you get what you needed? Not really. Okay, go back and try again. Lay down some more cards, expand the labyrinth, go back into it, auto attack the guys, get the power-ups that are in the rooms, try to find the checkpoints you need to find, but you got to get back before the light goes away. And that's kind of the loop of the game. I know that sounds really strange and it maybe like I'm rambling, but that's exactly what it is. So I really admire that there are a lot of ideas being tried here. It feels it's like somewhat familiar. Like each of these elements is kind of familiar, but all together in the way that they are, it does not feel exactly like anything else I've played in a while. And I think that's pretty interesting and neat. So I think that's a good feel. I do have a couple of issues with it though. I do think that the Vampire Survivors combat so far has been pretty dull. I haven't really gotten anything that really changes up how it feels. I've gotten like faster attack, longer attack, more damaging attack, but nothing crazy like in Vampire Survivors so far. Maybe there's more to come, but I haven't found like fireballs or laser beams or birds that fly around you in a circle or anything like that. So I'm hoping that the combat gets spiced up a little bit. It feels a little bit kind of dull, ho-hum combat right there. And another part of this game, which I can respect, but also don't like, is the fact that there's no minimap. And I guess part of the challenge of this game is that you create the levels yourself, so you should have a rough idea of what you've done. But once you're in a level, it becomes pretty easy to kind of like lose your way because some of the rooms and hallways look alike. And so you got to keep your mental map going of like, how far did I go? Did I go left? Did I go right? Where am I at now? And that's compounded by the fact that the light from the torch gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And so you're seeing less and less of the screen. And so you have less visual real estate to go by. And there's been a few times when I'm just like, oh dude, there's like, I'm in one of 3 hallways. I'm not sure which one I'm in. Enemies are hitting me and it's getting really dark and I can't tell, and you die and you go back to the start. So I would love a mini map, and I'm sure that that is absolutely counter to what the developers have intended, because I'm sure that getting lost is part of the fun, quote unquote fun, and all that stuff. But for me, it just would help. So hopefully there's a mini map power. I doubt there will be, but it would be great because for me, being lost in the level doesn't really add a lot. I think it's already kind of challenging enough to like manage your time and the light and stuff like that. So overall, I'm just kind of scratching the surface of it. I'm nowhere near finishing it, although people say that it is a fairly quick play. I mean, I guess compared to other things. So that's all relative, I suppose. But so far, I think it's really fresh and interesting. And I am curious to see what else is in store. Like what kind of like permanent unlocks I can go for. How can I improve my survivability over time? A lot of questions to be answered in this one. But I will check it out further and investigate more, and hopefully there's a couple more surprises in store. But even so, it's already pretty unique, and I think worth a look from anybody who enjoys, deck builders slash vampire survivors kind of thing. And it's just kind of like weird and different, and I really like that a lot. So Into the Restless Ruins, made by Ant Workshop, published by Wales Interactive. Next up is American Arcadia, coming to us from developer Out of the Blue, published by Raw Fury. So Fury. That's a funny name to me. I always think it's kind of hilarious. American Arcadia, what is it? It is a 2D... Yeah, it's 2D, even though it's got like polygon graphics and stuff. It's basically a 2D game where it's like a puzzle platformer, but they really lean into the story aspect of it quite a bit. Essentially, I mean, not to give anything away, although I think it's probably explained in like most of the trailers and such. Your main character is living in a closed society that the rest of the world is watching on television. So the people in this closed society, I apparently don't know that they're being filmed. They think they're just living their normal lives, but they're actually like, being broadcast to the rest of the world. Very much like, the Jim Carrey film, The Truman Show, if anybody's familiar with that. It feels a lot like that. So your main character is this guy who's just like a schlub. And it turns out that he is not one of the most popular characters on the show. And so the producers want to just basically kill him and get him off the show to make room for somebody else, because his life is just so boring. And he has like 0 viewers, no subscribers, no likes. And he doesn't know this. He's just living his normal life. And so he is just going about his business. But events happen, and eventually it turns out that they're going to try to kill him because they just think he's really boring. And things kind of go from there. So that's the story. I will say that the developer spends a lot of time on the setup with this story. It was... I mean, I appreciate a good story, and I appreciate some setup. I don't like being dropped into games really like in media res or whatever, but man, they took a long time to get this game off, and about halfway through the beginning cutscenes, I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to like start playing. I really want to get to this. But you eventually get there, and there's quite a bit of story. Like, you end up working with somebody who is in like the studio aspect, and they want to help you because they feel like it's not ethical that they're killing people with low ratings, which I agree with. So that makes sense. And you kind of become like this team where the person in the studio is manipulating things, and you are the person running through areas to get away from guards and stuff like that, to try to escape, basically. I didn't play a ton of this one. I think partly because it was just like, it took so long to get going. I was really kind of like restless by the time that we got to the gameplay. And then when we got to the gameplay, I think it's fine. Like, I think it controls okay. The guy, jumps and can climb and can do stuff like that. And then you also click your stick to take over some of the abilities that your person in the control room has. So like one of the, like in the beginning, she walks through an area and she's getting key cards and unlocking and hacking things. And then later on, you're in like this studio area and it's dark. And so you're trying to walk with your character through the thing, but you can't see because it's too dark. So when you click the stick and switch to her, she will like activate the lights and move the lights around to kind of give you like a path to go through. And you kind of work as a team to kind of get out of this Truman Show situation. I think it's fine. I think the aesthetics are not exactly to my taste. I think they're well done, but it just has this kind of weird kind of aesthetic to it, which a lot of oranges and browns and kind of like simple polygon graphics. I didn't really connect with the main character very much. And I think the visual style, like, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think it's poorly done. It just wasn't to my taste. And so I just wasn't really that intrigued by like how the game looked. It just seemed kind of like not something that was visually interesting to me personally. I'm sure other people would really enjoy it. And again, nothing wrong with it. I think it's strictly just a taste issue. As far as the gameplay goes, I mean, pretty straightforward, running and jumping. And then you get to puzzle sections, which are fine, but I felt they were a little bit clunky. I think switching back and forth between the guy who's running and the person in the control room is a little bit clunky. And even like on the very first puzzle, like it was really kind of off-putting because you're like fiddling with the stick and trying to get the camera to move the light in the right place, and then it's not quite the right place, and you switch back and forth again, and the guy's not quite there, and okay, I didn't have the right idea, I got to switch the light back and forth again. A lot of fiddling, and I don't know that it stays that way throughout the entire game. I didn't finish this game, but it just was kind of like, I just really wanted to get into a groove for a minute, just like run and jump for a little while, and it just felt like very stoppy and starty. And again, I have not played the entire game, so maybe it does streamline out the further you go. But between me not really connecting with the main character, it taking a really long time to get to the action, and then having this fiddly gameplay, it just kind of, I don't know, maybe I was having an off day or something. Maybe it just wasn't the right time. Maybe not the right game at the right time or something like that. Because, I mean, it's obviously well put together. I don't have any complaints about that. I think just it just perhaps wasn't what I was in the mood for at the moment. So I might come back to it when I have given it a day or two off and just give it another shot to see if I can get a little further and see how it goes. But I think American, Arcadia, and I just kind of got off on the wrong foot. And I think that's, it just happens sometimes. It just happens. Again, I'm not slagging the game, not slagging the quality. And I think that, I'll come back to it when I am more in the mood to play kind of a fiddly, puzzly, platforming kind of thing like this. So, wrong game at the wrong time. Apologies all around, but I will come back to it and give it another shot. So there you go, American Arcadia. If you want to play a run and jump platforming version of The Truman Show, I think this is going to check that box for you. Next up, we have Knock on the Coffin Lid. This comes to us from Red Boon. I believe they are developing and publishing. This is a turn-based deck building roguelike where it takes place in this kingdom where stuff is going down. Seems to be kind of just a general, typical fantasy type environment. The name Knock on the Coffin Lid seems to come from how the game is structured. In the beginning, this is not a spoiler, this is like in the very first cutscene. Basically, you play this guy who gets killed when he's going to go do something, and every time he gets killed, he gets sent back into a coffin at the start of the game. And there's like a, I don't know, necromancer, wizard, or some guy there who seems kind of shady. And he's like, yeah, I'm the one who's responsible for all of these resurrections, but you're actually not resurrecting. When you get killed, I just bring you back to before it all started. And then in the opening cutscene, it shows that he knocks on the guy's coffin lid to wake him up, and then the guy wakes back up, and then he goes back on another run. So they do narratively explain the roguelike structure, which is always neat when people do that. I appreciate that. I think I would rather have it than not, so I think that's great. But there isn't like a lot of story to go on. I mean, there's cutscenes or dialogue scenes anyway. But to be frank, it all kind of just rolled off my back. It was just kind of general fantasy chatter. None of it really stuck with me at all. And that's basically fine because we're here for the gameplay. So I hate to do this. I hate to describe game A by talking about game B, but in this case, I think it's warranted. Knock on the Coffin Lid feels to me very much like a lot of this is just directly inspired by Slay the Spire, which, as everyone knows, kind of like one of the success stories of recent years, and it kind of redefined the roguelike genre and the deck building genre. It kind of set the template for so many games that came after. And I think that Knock on the Coffin Lid is no different. In fact, very much of it seems to be just straight up kind of Slay the Spire. And I guess I just don't know what to do with that, right? Because like if I had never played Slay the Spire, I'd be like, oh, this is pretty neat, I like it. But because I have played Slay the Spire, I'm like, oh, this is very much like Slay the Spire, and I don't think like it's different enough. So that's kind of where I landed on this. Graphics are kind of fine, just kind of straightforward, kind of cartoonish sort of. I mean, okay, nothing like notable, not terrible. I mean, they get the job done, which is fine. A lot of the systems seem just directly lifted from Slay the Spire, where you have like relics that you find, the little nodes of the map that you choose are exactly the same. I mean, there's even, I believe, 3 different characters that you have to go through, which is exactly what happened in Slay the Spire as well. Even little details, right? Like for example, one of the things that always bugged me about Slay the Spire, even though I really liked that game a lot, almost got the true ending. Didn't get there, but almost. One of my white whales. Anyway, one of the things that I kind of didn't like about Slay the Spire was shielding. So let's say, for example, you're in a battle, your enemy's going to attack, and you want to throw up some shields to protect yourself from the attack. Let's say you put up like 20 points of shield, and your enemy's only going to hit you for 5. So that leaves you with 15 points of shield left over. But in Slay the Spire, all that shield goes away after that turn. So you could shield for like 1,000, but it's only going to last for 1 turn. And I always thought that was really irritating, and I wish the shield just stayed there until people chipped it away, so it would last a lot longer, give you a lot more protection, would be easier to shore yourself up from attacks. And in Knock on the Coffin Lid, it works exactly the same. Like, you let yourself shield, it goes away after 1 turn, and it just seems like a straight up lift from Slay the Spire. And I'm like, why did you, like, why didn't you change that? Or It's just hard for me to get past this because everything in this game seems directly like just like Slay the Spire, but in a different outfit, or different color. So I don't really have a lot to say about it other than that. I mean, if anything, it just made me want to go back and finish Slay the Spire. So it's good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It just feels very uninspired. It feels very by the numbers, and I didn't see a lot in this game to kind of really inspire me to go further. It just seemed like, oh, okay, it's one of these, and I've played a lot of these, and very few of them do it as well as the originator. So here we are. I mean, I hate to sound so negative on it, but I just don't really have a lot to say other than it seemed just like another version of Slay the Spire. Just kind of, I don't know. It's hard work to make a game. It's hard work to get a good idea. I get it. And, finding inspiration is tough. So I appreciate that these people wanted to make this game and it works well. And if you've never played Slay the Spire, I bet you really like it a lot. But it just doesn't bring enough new to the table for me. And I found myself kind of just often thinking of Slay the Spire rather than focusing on Knock on the Coffin Lid. It just did not get there for me and was too similar to stuff I've already played. So there you go. All right, last game of the show today is Blades of Fire, a very generic title coming from Mercury Steam, who are very unappreciated developers, I think. They have a lot going on that I don't think has really been well received over the years, but I really like them quite a bit. And published by 505 Games. And in case I haven't mentioned it, I believe, yes, every game I've mentioned on the show today, I have received a code for from the publisher. I think I forgot to say that at the top of the show. My apologies. But just so you know, I didn't pay for any of these games. These are all sent to me by developer or publisher for the purposes of talking about them here on this podcast. So there you go. Okay, Blades of Fire, what is it? It is a third-person action game with, I don't want to say every single game out there is like a Souls-like, but there are definitely some Souls-like elements here. I feel like Souls-like is becoming such a broad category that it doesn't really hardly mean anything anymore. But you are I guess you're like a spirit maybe or something. You're like a spirit that like possesses a guy is kind of my takeaway. I'm a little bit unclear on that. But anyway, you're this guy and he ends up becoming a blacksmith, and then bad things are happening in the kingdom and you need to go and stop the bad things from happening. A good friend of yours gets killed in the opening cutscene, and then you want to just get revenge and put things right. You are then accompanied by a person, like a young monk, I guess, who like takes notes for you, takes notes on combat and stuff like that, and will just help you throughout the story. I don't believe they have any effect during combat. I think it's only like you talk to them during cutscenes and they just kind of like are your companion. Maybe that changes later on, but we'll see. So it's a pretty straightforward combat system. You begin with like, I think a basic sword and a hammer or something like that. And in this game, the face buttons kind of map to what kind of attacks you have. So if you're looking at face buttons as in a diamond shape, then like the one on the left will do an attack that swings from the left towards the enemy. The button on the right will do an attack that swings from the right towards the enemy. The one on top will try to be a headshot or like, swing down on their head. And the bottom button on the controller will go like a straight, like a gut shot or like an underhand shot kind of a thing. So you're swinging your sword in the direction of the button you're pressing, and ostensibly you're supposed to be looking at your enemy and thinking, oh, okay, well, their shield is on their left side, which is my right side, which means I should attack from the left to hit the side that's unshielded, or perhaps the guy doesn't have a helmet, and so you want to do a headshot to knock him on the head, so forth and so on. I think you get the gist of this. Pretty straightforward. It's okay. I think it's fine. It's a good idea, I guess. But there weren't like a ton of attacks so far, and it just kind of felt very, I don't know, spammy a little bit. Like blocking is pretty straightforward, and then just nothing about the attacks really like lit me on fire. It just felt very like as expected, I guess. I think the variety is supposed to come from the weapons, and that's really like, I think the hook to this game is that because you are a blacksmith of some sort, magical blacksmith of some sort, whenever you come across a bonfire, which in this game looks like an anvil, I believe, you go to a different world. You go to like the crafting world because there's, I don't know, you're the god of crafting or there's spirits or something. And you go there and then you're like in this little room where you've got an anvil, you've got blueprints, and this game like really, really hard leans into craft your own weapons with a bunch of materials. And so you unlock blueprint types for your weapons by beating people in the environment. You get like the starter ones, but then you'll go, for example, you'll find a guy in the level that has like a lance, like a bad guy. So you go kill that guy, and then once he's dead, you can go back to your bonfire, which looks like an anvil, reset, and I guess this is part of the Souls-like thing. The guy comes back, just like in Dark Souls, and so you go back and kill him again. Let's say you kill that lance guy like 5 times, you will learn how to make his lance, and then at that point, you can go back to your spirit forge in the other world. You'll have the plans for it, and then you'll draw some plans on your blackboard before you make the weapon, and then you can adjust some stuff. You can adjust, like, depending on the features you have unlocked, and depending on the materials you have, because you have to collect tons of materials, you can have different alloys, you can have different shapes, like the handle of your thing might be longer or shorter, the blade might be in a different shape, there might be a different tip on your spear, maybe one's a diamond tip, one's a circle tip, maybe one's a jagged tip, or who knows what, serrated, something like that. So you can tweak all these little stats on your weapon, and you'll see in real time, like, oh, well, if I give a longer handle, that means it weighs 2 more pounds, which means I have less dexterity, but it hits for +5 attack because it's heavier. You know, you'll see all these little stats kind of go up and down, and so you can customize these things as you wish. And I don't know how many weapons there are in the game. It looked like there's at least 5 or 6 different types. Maybe there's more, because I was kind of just like in the beginning area. I didn't really get super far. But, you know, I think part of the loop is probably going back to attack people and grind them to unlock their weapons, and then using that weapon to go back and you know, make a better weapon, changing the materials of the weapon to make it stronger, so forth and so on. So I think that's really kind of the loop. And I guess it's like, okay, but I have to say, even though I'm a big fan of Mercury Steam, I really liked both of their Castlevania games that they did back on the day. I want to say that was Xbox 360, I believe. They had some like wild ideas to like revamp the Castlevania formula, and I think they were really good, like very undervalued, very unappreciated. They also did this kind of like free-to-play shooter thing that I thought was quite fun. It didn't last for very long as an online service. You know how tough it is to launch an online service these days, but I thought it had some cool designs. I was into it. But this one for me feels like a miss from this team. I think to start with, the stories kind of just feels like generic fantasy. The characters are not very interesting. You can't customize your characters, like they are set characters. And I didn't really care for my character, and the other people that I talked with, I just didn't really feel a lot about. And I gotta say, it's a problem because this game clearly hinges on the blacksmithing part. And if you don't get a lot of value out of doing the blacksmithing and filling with the weapons, there's not like a lot here for you. I don't think the combat system is good enough to like sell it just on that strength alone. It just was a lot of fiddling, a lot of materials, a lot of tweaking and stuff, and it just did not feel very fun to me. In addition to that, when you do have a blueprint ready to go, there's this like really poorly explained hammering game where you have to like, it looks like I don't know, like a little visual thing like you have on a stereo or something, where you can see like the little bars rising and falling. I forget what they're called, but like a visualizer or something like that. And the game does not explain it. And like, you're supposed to like hit your hammer on the weapon while these little bars are going up and down. And I could not figure out what even the point of it was. And I was like, things are moving and the bars are going up and down, and I'm supposed to hit the thing. And I don't get this like at all. It's very, very poorly explained. And if you don't understand this game where you're hammering the weapon, it means that you get fewer repairs, because the part I haven't said yet is that all these weapons break. And so there's this whole other side of fiddling with the weapon where its sharpness will reduce in some kind of which way that I didn't quite understand. Like I saw the percentages dropping, but it wasn't quite clear what was happening. And then once a weapon drops pretty far, you have to like repair it, and you can only repair something a certain number of times. So if you're not good at the hammering game, which to me was insane, I couldn't figure it out, then you have 0 repairs on your weapon. And then once that weapon, you know, wears down and breaks, you got to go make another one. And so you're constantly going back and fiddling with weapons and doing that. And if you think it's fun, then cool. I mean, I think that's great if you really like it. And in fact, I have talked to a couple other reviewers who were like, that was my favorite part of the game. And I'm like, cool. I love that you love that. That's awesome. But for me, it just felt like a lot of busy work that didn't feel very rewarding. And I just didn't want to be engaging with that side of things that much. So for me, I'm not sure that this game was ever going to land, because there's way more fiddling and tweaking and adjusting than I really wanted to do. And it just didn't feel like fun to me. Beyond that, you are in these areas that I don't, it's not open world. It's kind of like open area where there's like multiple elevations and you can walk around and you got to figure out how to like unlock doors. I'm not sure that I want to call it a Metroidvania, but I think it's kind of like ish in that way where you can see a gate that you got to get to, but you can't get there. You got to look around, find somebody who's got a key, then bring it over here and open the door, get through there. And then there might be like a power or something you need to trigger in order to get to this next place. And then you might want to come back later when you find a key you didn't have before. So it kind of feels a little bit like Metroidvania-ish, but not really, but kind of, sort of. And so you're kind of wandering around these levels, which is fine. But also the map they give you is not really good. There's multiple elevations, and so they don't really tell you, like, are you on the upper, are you on the lower? Sometimes I'd be wandering around trying to figure out, like, it seems like I'm right on top of something, but I can't find it, and what is going on, and that's kind of confusing. I will also say the tutorials are not great. One of the earlier battles in this game, you come across this big troll. It's like one of the first big enemies you meet very, very early. And the dude regenerates. So, like, you whack him and, you know, chip him down. You wear out his life bar, and then he turns to stone, and then he will pause for a second, and then he comes back, and he's got his health back and everything. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, how do you beat this guy? I spent, like, multiple tries just trying to, like, wear him down to see what would happen. And it turns out it was a trick that either I missed or the game didn't explain, where once this guy turned into a stone, you're supposed to do, like, some kind of a special attack by holding one of the buttons down to, like, chop off his arm, and that whittles down his permanent life bar. I mean, it was just, like, very confusing for like one of the earliest encounters. And it's like, why would you not take the time to explain this? I don't know what's going on in this game. And I really don't, I mean, maybe I missed it. Maybe I did. Maybe I blinked and I didn't see it, but like, I don't remember them explaining that part. And you would think that for one of the earliest battles, that's the perfect place to explain, hey, we have these charge up moves. Here's a troll who you cannot kill without doing charge up moves. Let's explain the charge up move and then have you do it and then kill the troll. And that way you will learn your lesson. That's how you would do it in like a normal game, but they don't do that here. And so that was kind of frustrating as well. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a couple cool ideas here, but I just think it didn't come together. I mean, the world feels kind of generic. I didn't like the characters very much. Felt like there's quite a bit of fiddling to do with the weapons. Just like a lot of fiddling, constant fiddling. And it just, I never really got into a groove where I felt like I was just like rolling with the combat and kind of exploring the world. And just a lot of stuff to deal with in that game, I guess. So it did not click. Sorry, folks. And sorry to Mercury Steam, because despite all the stuff that I just said about this game slagging it down, I really do love their other work. I mean, I think many of their other games have been really cool and really interesting. And I can appreciate that they took a swing with this one. And maybe it didn't land for me. Maybe it lands for other people. But I do very much appreciate they took a swing. And I'm happy that they tried something new. So maybe they will keep going. And maybe their next game will be a better fit for me. So there you go, folks. All right, game portion of the show is officially done. But like many humans, I do spend a few minutes a week in front of screens that don't have menus or life bars. That's right, folks. It's time for the TV and movie roundup. Not a whole lot to talk about this week. I honestly haven't had that much time to like watch much TV or much movies. I have been watching The Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers. This is from the 80s. This is a sci-fi / Western cartoon. One of my bucket lists of shows that I wanted to watch all the episodes for, and we're about maybe a third of the way through it right now. It's about four law enforcement officers who are kind of like vaguely Western in space, and they fly spaceships, but they also have guns, they have robotic horses, and they go on these different adventures on different planets. One of the guys is supposed to look like Clint Eastwood pretty much, and everybody has at least one special power. The woman is like psychic, one guy has a cannon for an arm, one guy is really good at hacking computers, and one guy can like change his body composition to survive in like any environment. So like if he falls into like a fiery pit, he'll activate his power, and then his whole body will become like fire of some kind so that he survives the burning. And they go on this just various adventures, like stopping criminals in the galaxy. It's interesting because number one, soundtrack is awesome. They have a lot of really, really good music in this cartoon. Unusually, like notably good music. I think it's very like outstanding in that sense. Literally outstanding, because you notice it right away. The opening theme song is something that I've been humming for like the last 40 years. So it's definitely some quality stuff. They are building a returning cast of characters, which I like. They are building kind of a universe by having certain things recur, which I think is always really good, especially for the 80s. So it's a good fun time. You can download some of it on Amazon, but you can only download like one season, even though there are, I think it's only a fraction of the episodes available. I think altogether there are 79 episodes, and you can only get like 20 something on Amazon. And the ones that you get on Amazon are not even in the right order. So it's really messed up. I didn't care for that at all. We've tried to watch it other places and I just can't find it. So what I had to do was I ordered a DVD set. I ended up getting a German DVD set because it was complete and it was super cheap. It has English voice tracks, the original English voice tracks, and the original English music. The only thing it doesn't have is English subtitles, which is a bummer, but I got the whole thing for like $20 and I feel like that's a really good deal. So I'll put up with it for now, even though I do enjoy subtitles, but I saved so much money on getting this DVD set. I think it's kind of worth it, but really liking the Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers. It's good stuff. If you've never seen it, it really is kind of a standout from back in the day. Lots of work went into the sci-fi technical design of the ships and the gear, and they really have thought things through. And there's a lot of times during the show where they will do a joke that is very clearly meant for like a grown-up. Like a lot of that stuff flew over kids' heads, but like they'll do a wink wink nudge nudge, or they'll have some writing in there that I think is really quite good, especially compared to their 80s compatriots. So Galaxy Rangers is pretty awesome. Still watching Poker Face Season 2 with Natasha Lyonne. That's still good. She plays a Columbo-like detective whose only special ability is to know absolutely whether a person is telling the truth or whether they're lying. Otherwise, she is a normal person, and so she kind of bumbles her way through like solving crimes. Fun. It's really fun. It's good times for sure. Also, one of the cartoon I'm watching right now is Thundercats, but not the original one, not the one that everybody knows. There was a reboot of the series in 2011, and I'm watching the reboot. This one is unusual because they really do like remix everything, and they gave it like much darker tone, more story continuity, more characterization, kind of an anime-esque kind of vibe to it, like harder core action, like blood and stuff that you didn't see in the original cartoon. And they just really start everything over, which is kind of cool. I know a lot of Thundercats fans were kind of ragging on it, saying they hated it. But, you know, I have to wonder, is that just because people from the 80s don't like it when things change? I think maybe I'm one of the rare exceptions where I really don't mind somebody taking a new stab at a property or doing whatever it takes to keep a property alive. If you have to reboot it, I think that's fine. Like the old thing is still there. Creating a new thing doesn't make the old thing disappear. Kind of reminds me a little bit of when Netflix rebooted He-Man Masters of the Universe, and they gave it a very heavy anime CG spin. I can see why people were kind of put off of that at first because it looked very different from what we knew in the 80s. But once I, got over myself and started watching it, I thought it was fantastic. It became one of my favorite He-Man shows. So, but a lot of fans really just hate that one because it just looks different. It's not what they know. And change is hard. Change is really hard. I get it, folks. But sometimes you got to roll with it. So this Thundercats, it's interesting because rather than being like a ragtag group of survivors crash landing on a planet, like the original premise, Thundercats are fully established in Third Earth. They are the power of the land. They are the strongest faction. They've got a castle. They've got like a kingdom. They've got, like everything. They are the dominant. And they are not treating the other people in the land very well. Like Lion-O, the main character, is kind of concerned about this. But his dad, King Claudius, is like, fuck those guys because we're the best. And cats rule. Everybody else drools. And we're fine to be on top. That doesn't last. But it's very interesting because I think they I don't know if they took some notes from Attack on Titan. If anybody knows that anime, you might have heard of it. Because there's a lot of similarities with Attack on Titan visually and in how they have the kingdom set up and kind of in like the flavor. My son and I watched almost the entire series of Attack on Titan, and there's a lot of parallels here, I think, at least thematically. So things happen, and the Thundercats go from being, top dog, ha ha ha, to being, like thrown out of the kingdom and trouble happens and things go wrong. And it's really interesting to see them like remix those things. Chitara, the former like sexy fast lady from the original series, has been remixed. She's now like a cleric, I think, and she has a different relationship to everybody. Tigra, who used to be kind of a wise mentor in the old show, becomes Lion-O's like adopted brother or half brother or something like that, and so they have more of a rivalrous relationship. And like just the whole land is different. It's just a very like similar parts of something that look kind of familiar, but everything is like in a new context. And I think it works really well so far. We're only a couple episodes in, but I've really been impressed. I think the animation is quite good. I think the imagination that went into re-envisioning this whole IP is really good. It only runs for 26 episodes. I'm not sure what happened, but either people hated it or it lost its time slot or something. I'm not sure exactly what killed it so quickly, but with only 26 episodes to watch, that's going to be a quick one. And I'm just really fascinated with seeing something that looks so familiar yet so different. So far, a thumbs up, but I will let you know once I finish all 26 episodes. All right, folks, that is a show. Before the closing music, I would love for you to leave reviews, share the show on social media, but most important of all, please recommend So Videogames to your friends, because nothing beats good old word of mouth. And as always, would love to get your questions and your comments. You can email me directly, sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit me up on social media. You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. It's my name, BradGallaway, all A's, no O's. You can also hit me up in the So Videogames Discord, which is totally free of charge. Just drop me a line through any of the channels I just mentioned, and we'll get you on board to continue the conversation. And finally, if you would like to support the show and help with the cost of running this podcast, you can do that over at patreon.com/the So Videogames Podcast. Every single dollar helps, it really does, and €1 helps that much more. All right, folks, that's going to do it for episode 439. Thank you again for joining me here on the So Videogames Podcast, and I'll see you next week.